3 people walked into the same bank branch last Tuesday. The first had $400 left in her account. She had been avoiding this visit for 3 weeks. The sin under scarcity threat is running so many background stress processes that there is simply less processing power left for financial decisions. Level 1 is not just a bank balance, it is a neurological state. Level ask. Studies show fewer than 20% of people at this wealth tier ever request fee waivers, even though banks grant them routinely to anyone who asks with confidence. The people will never develop it at this tier. They just feel good about their banker and quietly lose 1.5 to 2% of their portfolio every single year in fees they could have eliminated. Level 4, $100,000 to $1 million. And this is where something fundamentally different begins to happen in the neural circuitry. For the first time, the social power dynamic in a banking relationship starts to reverse. Not completely, not yet, but measurably. Your brain calibrates social status through something called the social comparison network, a system involving the medial prefrontal cortex and the temporoparietal junction. At lower levels, this network constantly processes the banker as higher status, better clothes, more information, a desk that you are sitting in front of rather than behind. At level 4, the inputs to this network start changing. You have options. You can leave. Other institutions want you. When your brain models a banking interaction with genuine optionality, when it knows you are not trapped, the threat circuitry stays quiet. And when threat circuitry is quiet, the prefrontal cortex runs the show. This is why level 4 people ask better questions, push back on fees, negotiate rates. Not because they are more financially educated than level 2 people. Often they know less, relatively speaking, but because their neural threat state allows them to engage the interaction analytically rather than emotionally. There is a documented shift in body language at this tier that tells the full story. Behavioral economists studying in-branch banking interactions found that at lower wealth tiers, customers lean forward, speak more quickly, use more qualifying language. I was just wondering if maybe, at level 4 and above, posture opens, speech slows, questions become direct. These are not personality differences. They are the behavioral output of different cortisol baselines. But level 4 comes with its own trap, anchoring bias toward the long-term advisor. At this tier, people have often built a relationship with a wealth manager or a financial advisor over many years. The brain has made that relationship part of its financial identity. Which means when the advisor recommends something bad, the brain resists the evidence, because accepting it would mean accepting that the relationship you have built your financial life around is compromised. Cognitive dissonance protection kicks in, and bad advice persists years longer than it should. Level 5, $1 million to $10 million. The status reversal is now complete, and the brain enters a genuinely different mode of operation around money. The most documented change at this level is hedonic adaptation. The brain's reward system recalibrates to a new baseline. The dopamine hit from a financial win is smaller. The pain of a financial loss, at scales that would devastate a level 2 person, is also smaller. Money has partially lost its emotional charge. This sounds like freedom, and in some ways it is. The cortisol load that drains cognitive bandwidth at level 1 and 2, gone. Financial decisions can be made with a clarity that was simply neurologically unavailable at lower tiers. But detachment creates its own category of errors. First, scope compression. The brain can no longer accurately feel the difference between 50,000 and 500,000 the way it could when those numbers represented years of work. The wealthy underestimate the significance of large sums because large sums no longer trigger proportionate emotional responses. Second, reduced feedback quality. At this level, almost everyone in your professional circle has a financial incentive to agree with you. Advisors, bankers, accountants. They tell you what maintains the relationship. The social feedback mechanism that helped you calibrate decisions at every lower tier is now systematically corrupted, and most people at level 5 do not even realize it is happening. Third, risk perception flattening. When losses do not feel proportionate, risk tolerance climbs, not through rational analysis, but through emotional desensitization. Some of the most catastrophic individual financial losses in history happened to people at this tier, taking on risks that looked fine from their hedonic baseline, but were objectively enormous. Now here's the thing I want you to sit with before we get to the protocol. Every single tier we just covered has a different dominant brain state. Fear and shame at level 1, hypervigilance at level 2, deference and social reward at level 3, analytical clarity with anchoring at level 4, detachment and feedback blindness at level 5. What is the common thread? Every single neural pattern we described is a response to perceived social threat or social reward, not to objective financial reality. The shame at level 1 does not help you get out of level 1. The deference at level 3 actively keeps you there. The detachment at level 5 can wipe out what took decades to build. The brain was never designed for the modern financial system. It was designed for small social groups, immediate threats, and visible resources. Abstract numbers in digital accounts trigger the same ancient circuitry, but the outputs are almost always wrong. The people who move through the tiers fastest are not the ones with the highest income. They are the ones who learn to recognize their brain's threat state in a financial context and override it with deliberate prefrontal strategy. That is the skill. That is the whole game. So here is what you do with this. Practically. Right now. First, identify your current tier's dominant neural trap. If you are at level 1 or 2, your trap is threat-driven avoidance. The protocol is forced exposure with reduced stakes. Open every statement this week. Automate one savings transfer. Ask for one fee waiver this month. Not because the money is huge, because you are retraining the amygdala's response to financial engagement. Repetition without catastrophe is how threat responses extinguish. If you are at level 3, your trap is deference to financial authority. The protocol is one rule. Never say yes in the room. Any product a banker, advisor, or financial professional recommends, your answer is, I will read the full terms and follow up in 48 hours. That 48-hour gap gives your prefrontal cortex the time to disengage from the social reward of the meeting and evaluate the product on its own merits. This rule alone is worth tens of thousands of dollars over a decade. If you are at level 4, your trap is anchoring to a long-term advisor relationship. The protocol is a biennial independent audit. Every 2 years, take your full financial picture to one independent fee-only advisor who has zero stake in your current products. Pay them a flat fee. Get a second opinion. The brain will resist this because it feels disloyal to a relationship. Do it anyway. If you are at level 5, your trap is feedback blindness. The protocol is deliberate adversarial input. One person in your life whose sole job is to tell you when you are wrong about money. Not a yes man. Not an advisor on commission. Someone with no financial incentive to agree with you. Every trap has a fix, but you can only fix the trap you can see. Now you can see them all. Subscribe for next week's episode, where we cover something most people refuse to believe: that your brain's decision about whether to invest in real estate versus stocks has almost nothing to do with the actual returns of either asset. The real driver is something else entirely. See you next week.